What would it be like to be the CEO and founder of a health sciences and biotechnology company? Well, that's exactly what I have in store for you today by way of this great guest. His name is Alex Martinez, and he heads up this company called Intrinsic Medicine. Now, for those who are keeping tabs on the biotech space, you might be familiar with their work. I mean, a lot of people are keyed in on their research, and for good reason. They're doing some truly innovative things. More specifically, they are leveraging human biology, or human breast milk, to create these compounds which can be used to formulate new drugs and therapeutics to treat things like autism, Parkinson's, cancer, and several other major diseases. Now, in this conversation today, we're going to dive into all of that stuff. Plus, we're going to hear about Alex's journey into it all. And spoiler alert, it is a little bit unorthodox. It's probably not what you'd expect. We're also going to tap into how Alex himself manages the ups and downs associated with the work that he's involved in. But as I always say, I mean, this conversation today is just a snippet of the true full-length conversation that I had over on major podcast platforms. And that conversation runs 45 to 50 minutes, and I encourage anyone who has an interest in health sciences or biotech to listen in. And you can find that wherever you access your podcasts. Just do that search for Life as a ... All right, well, I think it's about time to launch into things. So why don't we? Okay, well, first up, I want to launch into things by giving Alex the opportunity to describe his company, describe the science behind their work, because I think this sets the stage for a lot of the understandings and a lot of the insights, contained within this video, but then also the main audio version. So first up, here's Alex speaking about their company and what they do.
And what we're doing is we're developing new therapeutics for these, gut immune brain axis conditions, but we wanted to do things differently than how they're done. And our opportunity was, I wanted to start with something with compounds that truly were, safe, right?
Yeah.
That was the highest bar because we didn't want anything that could limit the application in the most vulnerable people that actually need it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, where am I going to find safe yet like very biologically active compounds? And so we were looking in early life. I said, okay, AI is not mature enough yet. So what am I going to use? I'm going to use something different. I'm going to use evolutionary intelligence, and I'm going to create a search and eval lens where I look for compounds that appear in early life that don't appear in other places.
Mm-hmm.
And so we found this, and what it represents, these are sugars. They're called oligosaccharides,
Yeah.
and they actually naturally occur in human breast milk.
Mm.
But what kind of amplified my scrutiny, said, wait, we need to take a look at these outside of this context, is that these oligosaccharides, these sugars in milk, in human milk, they're non-nutritional. A baby
Hmm.
can't break them down for energy, for caloric energy.
Hmm.
So why are they here? Why are they so abundant?
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And they're 5 to 15 grams per liter in human
Oh.
milk. So after fat and lactose,
Yeah.
which are nutritional, these are the third largest solid component, non-nutritional. So
Hmm.
they're important.
Yeah.
Uh, and so what we realize is that this is nature's pharmacopoeia, it's nature's drugs, that a mother can use to directly communicate with the microbiome and
Mm.
her baby's somatic cells, almost like using them as like training wheels for
Okay.
the maturation, uh, almost like enabling the foundational terraforming of a baby's gut.
Mm.
It's like colonizing its, feeding the colonization of its microbiome, because these oligosaccharides, while we can't digest them, guess what? The microbes we want in our gut that are associated with human health, they
Yeah.
can, preferentially. And then these compounds also talk to immune cells. They talk to somatic cells, cells of the body, muscle, bone, like
Yeah.
brain cells, nervous system. And so we look at it and we're like, okay, this is amazing. This is amazing biology. They clearly help babies.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of data showing that they're safe in human beings, infants and adults. And let's see if they could solve some of the bigger problems we have in chronic disease. And so
Hmm.
we have been approved in Australia to start dosing with our lead compound, which is the most abundant of these sugars. It's a synthetically produced but natural identical form. And we've been approved to start dosing patients with Parkinson's disease,
Mm.
phase 2 clinical program.
Now, I don't know about you, but I found that last clip to be really inspiring. Of course, with the work that Alex and his company are doing, but then also generally speaking, the world of health, science, biotechnology, it is evolving at such a pace right now that there's still a lot of possibilities out there. So speaking of inspiration though, I do want to segue into this next clip. And this is speaking to the point of how Alex got into this world. And as I mentioned off the top, it was a bit of an unorthodox entry point into this realm, into this industry. So I'm going to let Alex lay that out for you. So listen in.
So I think this is truly the culmination of a diverse set of career experience that I was seeking for meaning, inspired by some sort of calling to have a big impact on human health, but it was meandering, right? It was like studying
Yeah.
public health. It was then going to law school to become a healthcare attorney and realizing that, oh my gosh, the practice of health law is actually like perpetuating dysfunction in this
Yeah.
system. So entrepreneurship is the way, and going to Silicon Valley and practicing as a venture capital lawyer and being like, this is boring and I'm killing myself working 100 hours a week and I'm not doing the fun stuff. I'm not innovating. I'm not, finding the patterns and figuring out how to move them forward. And
Your background in terms of, as you'd mentioned, not the deepest educational base within health sciences, you'd already mentioned, and yet here you have this company and you're doing these amazing things. You have some breakthroughs along the way, coming about right now. So I'm curious about how you went about bringing that all together, building a team, professional health science professionals, obviously people within biotech, getting them to believe in your mission and what you're all about. Like, how did that kind of come together, at least initially?
yeah, so I mean, the way it came is I had an opportunity to work at a NASDAQ listed public biotech company that was doing genetic medicines. I think I alluded to it in earlier stories,
Yeah.
like how I entered, biotech in 2011, grossly unqualified, right? It was, I applied for the job to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And the general counsel, who's now my friend, was like, called me up and he was like, hey, we're not going to give you the job. Like, after I went through interviews, because he was like, we can tell you don't really want to be a lawyer. You just want a job. And then he said, hey, if you're open to it, the business guys have had a position open for a year.
Mm.
You're completely unqualified. They want a PhD with 15 years of, pharmaceutical biotech experience.
Yeah.
You have none of this. Would you be open to would you be open to hearing them out? And I said, sure, this is interesting.
Hmm.
Because those guys had met me during the interview process because they would have been like a internal client of mine in a lawyer role. And so we talked and they were like, hey, would you be interested in this? Outline it. I was like, yeah, that sounds like really cool.
Yeah.
Um, and they're like, okay, so we gotta just manage this one aspect, which is, you know, your resume relative to the job description and qualifications. And so I was like, hey, how about I do a project for your like the CEO of the company, COO of the company, right?
Yeah.
But what would this role actually do? Like, let me show what I think I could do. And I did
Hmm.
it. I beat out all the other candidates, right?
No way.
And
Yeah.
so so don't be afraid to be autodidactic, right? Like
Yeah.
and like never tell yourself no, allow someone else to tell you no. And so
Love that.
your goal is to always find a way to say like, oh yeah, I don't have that. Well, let me try. The worst you
Right.
can, and the worst place we could be is it's not a fit.
Yeah.
And then that served as the platform where, I'm in this role. I basically built a competitive intelligence market research function for a company that's spending like $250 million in R&D. So then I became like a strategy person on every single scientific program, like ranging from like early stage research to like drugs that are like well in clinic on their way. And each one was for like different disease. There were like 40 of them. It was a huge pipeline. And now I was like, oh, cool. I got in the ticket. I got the entry ticket. How do I stay? Right.
Yeah.
And then, well, okay, well, learning on my own has worked. And so then I just literally just started like reading and you know, I have like, what is it? I have it right here. It's right up here. Molecular and cell biology for dummies, right?
Okay. There you go.
So there you go. These dummies books, they work that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then going to primary sources. And so I've probably read 100,000 peer-reviewed scientific publications in my career. And then like literally in real time, I'm like teaching. I have the textbooks. I have the For Dummies opening. And what's most important is the litmus test is not a certification. It's sitting down at a table with scientists, with physicians, and creating value,
Yeah.
right? And then so I was able to build my confidence in this, build organizational credibility, and then it led to new opportunities. The next thing they're like, hey, okay, you're in charge of business development for this. You can handle this. You can work up.
No way.
And so it became pretty cool because then I was given opportunities that no one else could. I essentially became an internal management consultant, right? So then I
Right.
get to
Right.
work on the most important things.
Well, what strikes me in listening to all of this is like what an unorthodox kind of approach or how it all kind of came together.
Yeah.
And also too, I mean, it strikes me as that, maybe at least initially some of your weaknesses in going into all of this through time, through a lot of diligence, effort, led by passion, led by curiosity, ultimately became your strengths. Like I'm guessing here that people that have this strong background in health sciences went through it, educationally speaking, at least go through it in a particular manner in which they kind of come out the other end seeing things fairly similarly. But maybe somebody like yourself who went about it a completely different way, didn't have that initial background in it, a lot of self-study, you discovered things on your own in a different way, in a different manner. And that in itself kind of gave you a new perspective on things and maybe allows you to examine a problem, examine an opportunity from a different vantage point, if this makes sense. I'm guessing that probably played a big part in all of this and maybe what led you into, what you're doing right now, ultimately.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Christopher. Basically, taking like the ultimate arbitrage is taking pattern recognition from another industry, another vantage point, and then putting it into a place where people's noses are like here,
Yeah,
right?
there it
Uh,
is. Yeah.
right, and it's like that's what science is. Everyone's
Yeah.
staring through a microscope. It's a super narrow domain. And
Hmm.
here I am. I'm a public health guy. I'm a
Yeah.
sociologist, right? I'm
Yeah.
looking at like satellite level,
Hmm.
perspective. And then, oh, guess what? I was trained as like a litigator and corporate attorney, and so it's pattern recognition. I'm following logic within
Hmm.
science, and logical threads are often much longer than the very short
Yeah.
scientific.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and I think that's so yeah, you put it really well.
I absolutely love that last clip. And the biggest reason I did was that I think what Alex was speaking about towards the end is something that a lot of people struggle with. When you're entering to a new industry, a new space, and you don't have the existing base of skills and knowledge, most people would assume that is a major weakness. And yeah, it can be, but also that can be your greatest strength. You're gonna bring new ways of looking at problems, new ways of analyzing opportunities. And again, that can absolutely be a strength for you. Anyway, I do want to transition into a last segment here. And this one here is speaking about this notion of entrepreneurship being this roller coaster of a ride. And I want to know about how Alex manages some of those emotions, those extreme highs and those extreme lows. I mean, earlier he was speaking of how one of his drugs is in a phase 2 trial in Australia. Doesn't get much higher than that. However, you're going to see in this next clip that, There are times in our careers, in our businesses, where things don't go as planned. And what can be taken away? How do you manage these moments? So I think it's a valuable clip to tune into. So listen in.
I got this other question here too. And again, I mean, being a complete outsider to your world and all that you're involved in, I could still sort of envision, what you're doing, having some of the highest highs and also perhaps at different points, some of the lowest lows.
Yeah.
Things aren't going the way you envisioned or things aren't turning out, but also on the flip side, these unexpected sort of surprises along the way. So as a leader and as somebody who's so invested, not only in the company's success, but also like from a passion standpoint, how do you go about regulating your own emotions within all of this?
That's a lovely question. Because what we wanted to do is we recognized early on, and it's so well, I mean, when you look at the journey of entrepreneur emotions, it's literally a roller coaster. It's charted.
Yeah.
And so we recognize that, and we said, like, okay, this really does have like work and personal development, those are just intertwined. Like they have to be. They can't be
Mhm.
compartmentalized. And so um it's non-attachment, it's surrender.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, it's like, I mean, I had an IPO that was ready to go, like effective. I was in Wall Street, um, like getting ready to meet with, doing my road show. And I was cleared to begin on May 4th of 2022, which is when the Fed raised the interest rates for the first time and the market slid like 15% during just that week, right?
Yeah.
Zero IPOs got out to close the IPO window, right? And so I stayed there, it was a, you know, valiant effort. We stayed there for like 2 weeks, seeing if we can get this thing done. Financials went
Mhm.
stale, and I had to fly back home to, my family, my 2-year-old, and like be like, okay, that didn't happen, right? Not only the financial stuff didn't happen, but
Yeah.
like that's like a big culmination. And what I just recognized was, yeah, this is not my identity.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
not my identity. If this is
Yeah.
this is what I'm choosing to do at the time point, and if I no longer choose to do it, that's fine. I'm still me.
Yeah.
That's how, and then I've taken that
Mhm.
forward. That's how I regulated everything. And I was like, my identity is somebody that gets excited about things, get other people excited about things, does something, gives it a superhuman shot, and then respects himself, respects others, and um, just continues to exercise, aware and conscious choice.
Well, this might be a nice point to draw this video to a close, but as always, I do encourage you to check out the full-length audio version. There are several other topics that we get into. For example, we get this look at how Alex manages, the pure scientific aims of his company as measured against some of the financial objectives that they have. We also get this inside look at his take on AI and how it's shifting and upending the whole biotech space. And then finally, we're treated to a look at his perspective on how he assigns value and meaning to the work that he's part of. So yes, you can check out this full-length audio version wherever you access your podcast. Just do that search for Life as a ... All right, well, I will have another video coming for you right next week, so I encourage you to check that out. And while I have your attention here, I would love that like or subscribe. It would mean a ton. All right, we'll see you next week.